So welcome, especially the two courageous men who say okay.
Excuse me, three.
Three.
I've heard it before. It's worth listening to.
Thank you very much. The subject of my talk today is, are women a mystery, or is there a clue to them? So, anybody here who knows me or read about me? My name is Gabriella Guglielminotti Trivel. I originally come from Italy, from Turin, which is in the north. I have a long background in personal development. And originally I studied language, so I'm actually trained as an interpreter. But what I've been doing the last few years, actually, I'm teaching women the language of the feminine cycle, which is something that very, very few people talk about and very few people deal with, because even if we are in the 21st century, it's a taboo subject. Do you hear much be talked about it? You do?
Yeah.
In your personal life, maybe?
Yes.
Yes.
No, in yoga, actually. In yoga.
In yoga. Well, yoga is not the majority of people, right?
No, we just.
Okay, as I said, I've been in personal development for a long time. I actually started in my 20s, and I got involved into the so-called personal development because I was an interpreter, as I mentioned, and I ended up in Swiss Alps to translate in a little village where they were holding courses about macrobiotics. I don't know if you're familiar with macrobiotics. It's a way of eating, but it's also a philosophy of life. And from that moment on, really, I started being curious about the potential that we have as humans, and starting getting into spirituality, into different therapies, alternative medicine, and so forth. But I never really realized that of course it was all very interesting, especially in the beginning when you know kind of nothing, and you start dive into different realms, you know, massage and nutrition and yoga and aura and all this type of thing. But it never occurred to me, never, that the majority of all these people, they were great, by the way, great teachers, they were all men. Maybe there was 1% of them, among them, they were women. I never really paid attention, but back then I was also very young and I wasn't so aware of myself as a woman, and also I wasn't so aware that actually we have been living for a long time on this planet under patriarchy. Are you aware what patriarchy is? Is the rule of men. We have been living patriarchy. Basically, we have been living for thousands of years. Well, there are different figures, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, whatever, it doesn't matter. But we have been living on this planet for a long time in a world where society is influenced and driven and led by men. So as a consequence of that, everything that is feminine kind of go into the second, in the background, or maybe it goes under the carpet, or it's considered taboo, or there are many ways to eliminate something because maybe it's uncomfortable. But I don't know if you ever thought about this, but anything that is considered like taboo generally has got something interesting and it's got some power. And so, obviously, there's some kind of interest in keeping it hidden. Now, for instance, I don't know if you noticed, but lately, in the last year or so, there is a big surgence about the feminine and women being goddesses and the feminine energy, the feminine power. And as you were saying, you would like to understand more about the feminine and masculine energy. And I'm so glad that this is happening because I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. The thing is, until you start realize how much conditioning we're being through, it's very difficult to start seeing with feminine eyes. And I'm not saying that only women can see with feminine eyes, because both men and women, we have inside ourselves the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And actually we can be happy and we can be healthy and in balance and so-called successful, not successful in just being professionally successful, but successful in life if we don't know, recognize within ourselves both sides. Basically, we are living in transition time, and like all transitions in history, they show, that there's chaos, and people don't know anymore where they're standing. They don't know anymore where they want to go, and they can't. They're not clear about themselves either. It's a bit of that, but in any transition time, there is so much potential. Why? Because the status quo is being challenged, and because of that, we stand a chance to maybe reshuffle everything and make a better living for the future, and obviously to leave a legacy to the future generations. But let's backtrack just for a moment about conditioning. What is conditioning? I just want to spend a few words about this, because I really felt it, experienced myself, that it took such a long time for me to start really getting it, to see it and to understand it. Because as the word says, condition, it means that since we are born, we just take for granted that things are in a certain way. And certain things are not okay, some other things are okay, and we don't question. But the new, the better, the thing that makes you feel great generally comes when you start questioning yourself and think, what do I want? How do I feel good about this thing? Do I feel good about this or not? It's just because everybody behaves a certain way that is right? Maybe not. So, conditioning. I would say there are 4 major types of conditioning that we all have. The family conditioning that we all obviously undergo, because in the first 7 years of our life we are immersed in our family. And so we just absorb the energy of our parents, and we just take that, we think that it's okay the way they behave and what they teach us. And then also we start to go into school, and so in that second period in our life we have the conditioning from our teachers and the type of study we might choose. And also in the schooling time there is a conditioning that also comes from our society, right? Because we start being taught how we are supposed to be behaving, what is good, what is not, and what we should aim for in life, etc., etc. But there is very little, more now, but it's very little encouragement for youngster to really to look inside and to really to find out what is important to them. So we grow up as adults, but with very little skills to really to discover who we are and what we want and what makes us feel good and what it does not make us feel good. Then we go and start work, generally speaking, right? Then we have another conditioning, the workplace, the work environment, that of course is influenced also by the system, political system, our social system. And so in our Western society is driven by capitalism, right? So consumerism, we are considered valuable just because we have power, because we can be consumers, we can buy stuff, basically. So if you don't stop and think, hang on a minute, but I don't just want to spend my life just buying stuff or just consuming. There must be something more to it. It's really difficult then to start seeing more, seeing beyond. And then there is another major conditioning, which is religion. Either we are religious or not, our society has, in society, religion takes a big part in it. And so we have been, especially in Europe, under majorly Christianity, but for hundreds of years, thousands of years, right? So even if we live in the 20th century, we're born in the 20th century, we live in the 21st, and we think, oh no, we don't believe in God and all these things, we don't really realize that actually all that is so ingrained in us, it's so hidden within our mind, in our way of thinking, that it's really difficult to see again, to see beyond. I'm mentioning these things because out of my own experience, it took me decades to really start realizing that and go beyond. And I'm trained as an NLP master practitioner, and that really kind of helped me a lot to understand more of the conditioning. And still, because you understand, you start feeling and seeing more about this conditioning. It's like when you start waking up, you realize how asleep you were, right? And you realize there is no end to it, because you can only be more and understand more and wake up more. So we all are in this conditioning, we're deeply steeped in it. And so we take for granted that maybe we were lucky and we ended up in the personal development arena, and so maybe we started looking into yoga, spirituality, different therapies, etc. And we think we understand more, and it's true. But actually, are we really understanding more? And are we really, especially as women, waking up in ourselves that part has always been hidden for a long time? Also, how many of you as women in this room have had in their life a strong feminine role model? How was your mom or your grandmother? Which type of women were they?
They were, in essence, my mum was a little bit weak,
Okay.
which is fine.
What is weak for you? I'm curious.
I suppose weak is not being able to stand your ground.
Okay, yeah.
But obviously, as experience comes along, you pick your fights, don't you?
Yeah. The women in your family. Oh wow.
But they were not feminine at all. They were
Okay.
really masculine, and I became also very masculine. And I realized that I have been learning from men only
Okay.
for a long time, and it just didn't fit with me and couldn't really apply what I learned.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I realized that, yeah, because they are men and I'm not. I mean,
Yeah.
from me it's not very authentic and
Yeah.
I'm not congruent when acting like acting the way I learned from them. So yeah.
There are two things that you brought up that are very interesting. First of all, you said the women in your family, they were very masculine.
Well, that's
And-
what
and
I
those-
was thinking about them.
Okay, they were dominating, right? Okay, so they were more in their masculine energy. And you were saying that you learned from men also. And so you were feeling like kind of different because you're a woman, right?
Well, it took me a long time to
Yeah,
realize that
yeah.
actually.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I can say I experienced the same thing, not about women in my family, because the role models I had in my family, they were kind of, as you were saying, weak, between inverted commas,
Yeah.
more dominated by men. And then it obviously influenced me because I felt like kind of that is being feminine. But it doesn't have to be like that. And also you were mentioning earlier, you know, the being balanced in men and women and understanding the dynamics. And in our society, it's very common to notice that women, because they want to succeed, they repress their feminine. And actually they are living and enacting more in their masculine to survive. And it's such a big part. And for women in our society, and the thing is, what I experienced myself, it took me a long time to understand it, to even become aware, because if you're not aware, then how can you do anything about it? So it took me a long time to understand that the personal development arena is actually men-driven. And I was a woman, and it took me a long time to think, hang on a minute, but I'm a woman, so I work in a different way. And it wasn't until recently, actually, when I was, I tell you what happened to me. I went through a very difficult time in my, from 2005 to 2007. I went through a change of career, I was made redundant at work, and I went through divorce, and I lost all my kind of social background because it was linked to my marriage. So I really found myself alone, and my family is not here, so obviously I was living in London, big place, you know, and it's very difficult to have friends. And I started skipping my menstrual cycle, my family cycle. And because I had been into alternative medicine, I knew that normal medicine would really give me any answer. So I kind of, in my heart, I asked for being enlightened, right, to find out more about what my body wanted to tell me. And it wasn't until 2009 that I came across a lady called Alexandra Pope. And she's a psychotherapist, and she has developed for a long time a body of work around the feminine cycle. And because, of course, I was missing my cycle, I was interested, so I listened to a conference call, and I went to her training. And what I experienced that day is what I want to share with you today. It's something that really changed my way of looking at things and understanding myself. And why? Because it only occurred to me that day that there's nothing, even in the personal development world, that teaches women that we are creatures who have a biology that is very different from men. I know it's obvious, but there's nothing out there that actually tells you, look, your body cycles and makes you go in cycles, and this affects your mind, affects your emotions, and affects obviously your spirit, because we have the mind-body connection. So if your body makes you feel and experience certain energy and certain emotions, then obviously your mind is affected, and as a consequence of that, your action and what you experience in your daily life. I want to leave you today with very few things that are very simple that can help both men and women. The feminine cycle is like the powerhouse of a woman, and it runs the woman's body and emotions and mind during the month. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but the feminine cycle is mainly formed by 4 stages, 4 different weeks, where the woman is actually entering different experiences. So, in case you don't know, let's mention them. We have the pre-ovulatory phase, which is the first week. Then we have the ovulatory phase, which is the second week, when the woman ovulates. Then we have the third week, which is the premenstrual phase. And then we have the menstruation, what is normally called menstruation, or the menstrual week. Now, this is in biology terms, or doctor's terms, right? In these different phases, to understand what it really means for a woman, I think the best way is to compare them to the season, the 4 seasons we have in a year. So let's start from the spring, which is compared to the pre-ovulatory phase. In spring, women experience exactly the same energy we experience in spring. And how do we feel in spring? We are very generally energetic, we want to start new things, we sleep less, we are enthused by everything that is starting happening outside because everything is blooming, right, in spring. And so automatically, you know, we are nurtured, full of energy, so by winter we have rested, right? So in spring we want to take the world, you know, we want to start new things. This energy leads to summer, which is compared to the ovulatory phase. And in this season, a woman blossoms, is really full of, is even more full of energy. It's like in summer, it's warm, we are more relaxed, we are more social. We want to do things with other people. We want to celebrate. We have parties. So in that week, a woman can multitask very well and very easily. She doesn't need so much sleep. She is very a yes person, always say yes to everything, and everything is easy. So these two seasons I just mentioned, the spring and the summer, are normally very well received by society. Why? Because women are very optimistic, they're very energetic, they say yes to everything, right? They're productive, they sort out all the problems. But then the wheel turns, and so we enter into autumn. And autumn is the premenstrual phase. And the premenstrual phase, funnily enough, especially in our world, is a problem for so many women. Think of autumn. How is the energy in autumn? It's cooling down, right? And we start thinking, oh, well, winter is coming, so we start thinking what is really important to us. We review what we have done in the previous part of the year, and we are less energetic. We're starting sleeping more because it's cooling down energy, right? So we need the most sleep, and also we start doubting, and we're not really sure what have done so far has been very good, etc., etc. So it's kind of the doubt season. It's the no season. So you can imagine it's not a season that can be received very well, is it? Because women in this season, they say no. Or if they don't say no, they might say yes, but then they have doubts, and so they might say no later on, right? And they start criticizing things. So it's uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable because they speak as it is. And then from autumn we go into winter. Winter. So it's a season that is involved in the menstrual week for a woman. Again, many women in our society tend to have problems, and physical problems, and can be sometimes be in pain during the season. And let's look at this one. In winter, how do we feel? Aren't we more inclined to stay indoors? Aren't we more inclined to be dreaming because it's cold outside? It's much better being next to the fireplace indoors. And we tend to be also maybe we will have a party, but just with a few friends, and we rest more, and we want to have quiet time, and actually we prefer to think about stuff instead of going out there and do things, right? So again, it's not something that our society likes very much. Why? Because production is not really on the boards, right? It's not so important. And you know what? I have my own way. I think about stuff, and I'll let you know later on. So it's very different type of reply to the reply that I might have given in summer when I'm feeling very energetic and I'm feeling all up for it and everything is okay. So can you see that when you realize and you start paying attention to this, for a woman, every month is like an adventure in 4 different seasons, which is very tiring, right? Because basically every week you're in a different type of energy, and you have to cope with it. And the fact is, if you're aware of it, you can kind of know what is coming. But if you're not aware, it's just like all a kind of a mystery, right? But I would like also to really go around the year and go through the season and look at it on an emotional level, because that's what is very important, right? Emotions really affect us a lot. So let's suppose I'm in my spring time. Emotionally, I feel really outgoing. So being outgoing is, do you think, is a more masculine or is a more feminine type of energy? So spring, it's really a time where women are in their masculine. And in summer, we have this energy that is rising, right? So we really reach a peak, an apex, right? And so we are even more outgoing and problem solving, multitasking. So do you see that why is possibly accepted very well by society, the fact that in these 2 weeks we are very productive? It's all go, right? It goes very well in the corporate world, doesn't it? When you start doubting and you start being more introverted and you start paying attention more to your feelings and what you think and your reviewing things, what do you think it is? More masculine or feminine? Well, it is feminine. So if we are more on the soft side, we are more touched by things, we are more kind of moody. Is it something that is well received? Are you asking me if what I think women need more from men during the season? Yes, we as women we go through this 4 seasons and we have different needs. What we, generally speaking, expect from men, even if they don't know that, it would be to comply with us and supply and respond to our needs. So in spring and summer we are very energetic, we are more in the masculine. So for a man, you know, it's easier to get along maybe with a woman because she has a similar energy to his own. But then when the wheels turn, and so in autumn and winter, a woman is really in her feminine, right? So she becomes more touchy-feeling, can be more moody, and she speaks up her truth. So for a man who doesn't know this, it becomes maybe a minefield, right? Because, and might interpret this maybe from her partner or his wife or from his wife, you know. We can interpret that as a criticism or not being appreciated. And all a man should actually do, if he knows, just see her woman being in line, her body takes her into a feminine energy. So he shouldn't be worried by that. He should enjoy that. And also, the thing is, if the man is aware that her partner, her friend, her spouse, her daughter is in that energy, he might be interested in finding out in what she thinks, for instance, because it's a truth time. Isn't it handy? Especially in a relationship, you know, when maybe you have doubts or you don't know how it's going. If you want to talk to your woman and find out the truth, talk to her in autumn. And then when she's in winter, so she's in the menstruating, bleeding week, it's really your turn as a man to take care of her. So you can really step into your masculine role and serve her because you're complying with her, so you're accommodating her female needs. Your partner is in a very vulnerable space.
Yeah.
So what do you feel inclined to do?
Well, it's a mixture because there's a kind of just being clear. Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to go. Don't worry, I've got it. I'm controlling it. You can just relax. I'll just do this.
So
now.
you will step.
I'm cooking. I'm
Yeah,
preparing, that kind of
exactly.
thing. But then
A
there's
woman
also-
would really appreciate that.
But then there's that, you know, that tenderness and softness of, and you know, no pressure and just like empathetic. So
yeah, so wouldn't you think that then a time like that, it would be good for both? Because the man has got the chance to step into his masculine, the woman has got the chance to step into feminine,
think if he wasn't able
and
to
it's
do
very
both,
complementary.
If he wasn't able to do both, it'd probably be a problem, basically. So it sounds like.
But I tell you my take, okay? I think the major problem when neither has got a real clue of about what is going on is that the woman doesn't accept her feminine and so starts having physical problems. And the man is really challenged by this straight speaking being spoken to, right? And this criticism. And so he starts feeling in danger zone, right? And the woman she feels vulnerable, so she would like to let go, but she can't because she feels the threat of the man not being alerted and feeling kind of, ooh, what's going on here? But if they both know what's going on, it's really a way for them to grow. 20 years ago, when I was in my 20s, somebody had initiated me to all this. I would have felt okay with feeling what I was feeling instead of feeling wrong. Because when you are not aware of something, you just feel, oh, there must be something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. But if your mother or your grandmother or your auntie or whatever would have taught you that, a woman, that's what experiences in her life during the menstruating years, then it would allow me, to feel okay, to appreciate the fact that I was in the week of a month much more experiencing maybe psychic things, feeling more in need of sleep, feeling in a space where I need to be vulnerable, because it's only going to the space of vulnerability that you can appreciate your femininity. And then for a woman, obviously, it makes you feel strong. And for a man also, being able to be in his masculine energy.
Feels needed.
Yes, it's fun. Basically, becoming aware of my femininity, becoming aware of how we as women we operate, how we think, we work, and all the rest of it. I realized that a big dream of mine, which is helping women to feel empowered. And why that? Because I really love men so much, and I want to give men back their women. But women should be meaning feeling great, accepting themselves, and as such appreciating obviously their men. Because as women, if we are in our femininity, of course we attract men who can allow themselves to be in their masculinity. So everybody's winning, and everybody's. Woman of the 21st century is a woman of the next generation. She is beautifully strong. She acts according to her soul purpose. And because of that, she's irresistibly magnetic and engages in empowering relationships with men and women. She gives birth every day to her reality. She pays attention to her feelings, and her feelings guide her to create what she wants. She does it through relationships that help her to discover more about herself. Relationships are her tool in the playground of life. Her feelings are her strength. They complement her intellect. They are a precious source of inner guidance. She's clear about her vision and purpose. Therefore, she's a beautiful inspiration. How does she do all this? She is in contact with her womb. She's aware of her cycle. She acts following its energetic flow. She elegantly flows in the river of life, guided by herself, her center. This makes her a magnet, a beacon of inspiration rather than perspiration. Do you like the picture? Does it sound enticing? Does it make you feel good? I can smell the scent of this woman. Life for this woman tastes great. So I hope you want to join me and you want to help me to create this vision, make this vision a reality. It's a silent revolution, but it's very compelling. The feminine energy is rising, and we can both, either men or women. Thank you very much.